Hey, what's up, guys? I am going to do something a little newer, or I guess something out of my comfort zone, and just kind of speak to my own experience and give you some context about why I do the things that I do and why I research the topics that I research, specifically in non-ordinary states of consciousness, near-death experiences, and just my exploration in the cosmos and the universe, and what I think, why I go after the deep philosophy, the big philosophy. And just open myself up more and this is my process of becoming more vulnerable and being comfortable in that and allowing you to make a connection with me and at where I'm resonating and where I'm at in my path, because I think it's so important. If, if you're watching me, I feel like you should know like why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So this is why I'm creating this video. It won't be really long, but it will be very raw because I'll be speaking to my experience, and I hope you guys enjoy this. So why do I interview the people that I interview and have the conversations that I do? Well, I would say it started for me, spirituality, like a deeper dive into that around 2016. I converted to Catholicism from Methodism, if you want to call it that, Methodist. And at first, I just did it for my kids. I wanted to experience what they were experiencing throughout their Catholic education and upbringing, and just understand the traditions more into why we do the things that we do. And then over the year process, I really started to really enjoy diving and experiencing something deeper than myself, and through prayer and through the protocols that Catholicism implement and some of the traditions and rituals. However, I still felt a little bit of a lack there, that I still didn't understand why you had to be a certain way and why you had to be a certain culture or from a certain background to be accepted into that community. That never really made sense to me, but it wasn't until like one Christmas where the priest gave me a book. It was called Resisting Happiness by Matthew Kelly. And really the idea around it was there's this natural resistance in the universe that is really hindering us from being the ideal person that we're trying to be. The resistance can look like procrastination. It can look like voices in your head telling you not to do something. It could look like just demotivation from the thing that you're trying to achieve. Just feeling tired. It can a lot of, name it, and you can basically call it resistance. But for me, what that did was it showed me that the voices in my head weren't mine. It showed me that I'm not lazy. It showed me that the procrastination is just some type of defense mechanism that I've created for myself in order not to feel uncomfortable and to go after my dreams and desires. And it actually objectified it for me. And so what it allowed me to do for myself is to pull myself up from my bootstraps and really go after that and try to defeat that. I mean, I look at it totally differently now as far as resistance, but then I had to objectify it and I had to make it something else. And it allowed me to start experiencing improvements in this total self of who I am. And which led to another breadcrumb, which allowed me to really dive deep into the world of podcasts and just take on as much learning as I possibly could. And that sparked the idea of me actually starting a podcast. And I had a lot of conversations with my brother-in-law, Joe, and we kind of had this like, all right, if you do this, there's like a dare moment almost. Like if you start a podcast, I'll start a podcast. So we both started a podcast at the same time, both around like entrepreneurship and business mindsets. Mine was a little bit more geared towards the blue collar individuals because that's where my background is. Like I'm very blue collar, and it slowly evolved into something much more grandiose in the world of beingness, in the world of spirituality, which in April 16th, 2018, I started Your Superior Self. I launched it. And then speaking to that point of resistance, like that, a lot of resistance came in, hardcore, like voices of like, you're not good enough. Who are you to start a podcast about self-betterment, about self-improvement? And man, I was feeling all the feels then. I was exposed at that point. Like I was very nervous and I was very uncomfortable in having conversations. Like I would write things down and try to create a script so that way I didn't have to like really dive into, me and my story and share that. And which later I found that the more vulnerable that I become, the more authentic that I can be, the more that resonates with an individual or an audience, right? And it's just funny looking back at it now and like all the scripts that I had to create and everything that I had to do in order not to be myself and to hide and to mask like my own fears of being exposed or allowing people to see me for who I am and being, ashamed of the curiosities that I had. But in 2016, I started the podcast. And then later in 2018, everything changed as far as my momentum and my own spirituality. I had a friend that I was working with. His daughter was 7 years old at the time, and she had cerebral palsy, and she was just this angel of light. I can't even describe it any other way than that. Like she would go up using her intuition and going to the market or stores. She would walk up to random people, random strangers, and give them hugs. And I can remember my friend essentially like saying, why are you walking up to people and like doing this? Like, you can't do this. It's like, we don't do that. But she would continue to do that. And she was a light in the darkness for a lot of people. And the strangers would always say, oh, you don't know how much I needed that hug or I needed that smile. Like it really helped me get through a tough time. And so Addison was her name. She somehow got infected with some type of virus, which I don't even know how to describe it. So I remember her going into the hospital and battling this virus, which spread throughout her body, and having deep conversations with my buddy about it, and just kind of supporting him in any way that I could. And ultimately, the virus spread to her brain, and I don't even know what to call it. It's so rare for this to happen that the name is like I can't even pronounce it. Like like 5 people in the world probably have had this, and quickly she passed away. And during that time, like I was just totally taken back. I had 2 small children, and as a father, I was just totally blown away. And my wife was pregnant with our third, and Addison passed away in November, and my daughter was born in December. So that was just like an existential type of shock to me, how someone so pure and innocent could go through that pain and pass over. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have new birth and new life coming into this world. So I'm working through that, and feeling loss and sadness, and then all at the other end of that is happiness and joy. And over the year, I'm having these conversations with my friend about where life and just where he's at, and I notice he is dealing with the loss of a child. Was what I thought was significantly much better than how I would have handled it. And it just sparked curiosity for me. And I straight up asked him, I said, how are you able to deal with this? It just seems like you're in a better spot than I would be. And I understand now that grief is totally different for different people. But back then I had no clue. I had no idea what grief was and how people can handle that. But he started telling me that he was seeing a psychic medium, and that this lady, this individual, was bringing in evidence from the other side and helping him cope and helping him process that grief, because she was basically providing evidence that Addison's consciousness, that Addison's spirit was still around. And there was no other way to explain it but that she was connecting with that. And so he's telling me this. And I remember, sorry, I have notes here just because I don't want to get sidetracked. Addison was giving them signs about an information that no one else could know. And so that just started sparking my curiosity a little bit more. And it wasn't until like the Super Bowl of that year, I think it was like, or the year following, because she passed away in 2018, and then 2019 we really just had long conversations. And then during that year, he was telling me about psychic mediums and his conversations with those. And then following up the Super Bowl of 2020, he basically told me that, during one of his sessions with his psychic medium, she had spoken to her guides. And she said to him, I don't know if you're a betting man, but my guides are telling me that Andy Reid's team is going to win by 11. And this was going into 2020 Super Bowl with the Chiefs. And I can't remember who they're playing. But, I was big in the NFL back then. And of course, I'm like, dude, it's not going to happen. Like, it's the Super Bowl. Like, nobody wins by 11. Like, you know what it would take for that to happen? It's like 3 field goals, I think, and a safety or something like that. But sure enough, Super Bowl rolls around and the Chiefs win by 11. And so at this point, like, I'm totally taken back. Like, I'm like, what is it? What is it that this person is tapping into that is allowing her to access information about future potentials? Like, what is that? And so I immediately just, during that time, started diving a little bit more into psychic mediums, which led me to Bob Olson's work, and which I think he was one of the mediums that he wasn't speaking to personally, but he was reading his material. And he talks about near-death experiences and different phenomena that was out of the realm of my own possibility of thinking. Like, now remember, I'm like newly converted Catholic. So a lot of this stuff is frowned upon in the Catholic Church. So I'm, I'm newly christened, or whatever you want to call that. And now I'm really diving deep into the occult and just kind of searching for answers of my own. And I stumble upon near-death experiences content from Raymond Moody, and just trying to understand, like, what is it that he's, what he's about. Because I was really into psychology then. Like, I was going back to school for business, and because of this altering life event and some of the material that I was reading after, the Super Bowl event, I wanted to know more about psychology. So I switched my major to psychology and started reading Raymond Moody's literature on near-death experiences, and which led me to, I think it was Paul Selig's work, channeling. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you about that. Like, I was not at that point easily open to the channeling. I had no idea what it was. I had no clue what to expect, as far as the information that was coming through, where it was coming from. Like, is it is this even real? But like, just listening to Paul Selig's story and like how humble he is, like, he's not going to sit there and, he's not going to sell you some bull crap. Like, he'll let you know, like, when he first started, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, he's so humble and so authentic that it just didn't make sense to me that he would be making that up at all. And I mean, I read a lot of his books at the very, very beginning, still not really having the capacity to understand what he was talking about. But it just seems funny because how, like, this whole process of spirituality works, because it's like the universe gives you one breadcrumb and then gives you another and then another and then another. And yeah, and I just started diving deep into spiritual texts about whether it be channeling or, I mean, the Seth books, Abraham Hicks. Like, I just went all deep into topics I fully didn't understand or was even accustomed to. Like, oh, my background wasn't even open to that. And so I just, and another thing too is like when I had the podcast up and running, like I started getting, when all of this transition was happening into the more of the esoteric and mystical topics, like people started pitching me more of psychic medium guests and channelers. And I'm like, this can't be a coincidence. Like this, I'm not talking about this with anyone else, but yet here I am receiving opportunities to have conversations with people that are channelers. And so I just went with it. And, after 500 conversations with channelers and mystics, like here I am, like speaking to you right now in this live. And yeah, I think it's so fascinating how we evolve over time. And it still doesn't make sense to me. It still doesn't, like, really hasn't. I can't put one thing, I can't put my finger on the one thing that really turned it for me other than, Addison's death and the conversations with her father, and then the premonition of the Super Bowl. Like, I have to think that her death, you know, being 7 years old, being this pure being, like coming in and agreeing to 7 years of life in this realm to experience that and to knowingly step into that experience and say, all right, I'm going to be here for 7 years and then I'm going to pass over. But in doing so, I'm going to inspire many to search for who they are. And so, like, no matter what happens to me, like, I will continuously do this podcast in her memory because it is her that really started me down this path of spirituality and searching for who I am. And I want to honor her. I want to honor all the beings of change that have inspired many of us to search more in who we are and what we can be as a society, as humanity. And I just want to say that no matter where you're at, no matter what's going on in your life, like there's someone trying to help you. Like there's something that is guiding you. And don't be so close-minded to things. Like I was very close-minded to this stuff at first. And looking back at it now, I know that the closed-mindedness like really shut me off to having more experiences and just trying to like color it just from my own perspective a certain way, right? And I think through the work and through like meditation protocols and through conversations, like you become more aware to how you've ultimately been programmed to think from society or institutions or religion. And I'm just asking you to take those masks off and see it for what it is. It's an opportunity to know something or to experience something different. And yeah, I just wanted to take a moment and to just speak to how I've come to talk about these topics, which I love, by the way. Like I love having conversations about people's experiences, and I love having conversations about spirituality and how other people experience the universe, the cosmos, the divine, spirit, whatever you want to label that. But I think the truth, like everyone's has their own truth. Like I don't think that there is one truth. there's one right way of experiencing God, and I don't think that anyone really knows the truth. I think that's the great part about this place is there's this mystery. I think there are pointers. I think there are mystics and teachers and Gnostics that have come before us that are pointing towards that direction. And I think our responsibility is for us to experience that for ourselves, and interpret it not with the lens of society or through religion, but through the lens of pure being, pure awareness, and then integrating that knowledge and experience into this reality to change at some level, whether that be just having the awareness in the moment of what's happening and being able to take a step back and look at it in a new lens, or even like being a little bit more loving towards someone, or patient or kind or understanding of their situation or what they're going through. I think to me, that's expansion of self. That's the expansion of, I mean, if you listen to a lot of the mystics, I mean, your expansion is the expansion of the universe. And that's the paradox almost. It's like in order for you to expand, you need to go within, right? And not go to the external. But it's also like you're creating a duality there of cutting off a piece of yourself. Like I know for myself that I have gone to a lot of externals in my life looking for happiness and for truth and for guidance. And I never really went inside to find my own answers. I never trusted those answers that ever came up because I felt like that was the imagination. Those were the voices of society and science, and I didn't trust that. But now that I go back into myself and listen with the intention of being open to whatever comes in and allowing it to flow, I'm building more of that trust. And that's why I'm speaking to you right now, is because I am trusting the self more and allowing me to drop the mask of the persona of Trey and showing up for you in a new way, not just a conversation with a guest, but a monologue of experience and being and openness and of love and presence, and not knowing what is the right way or right way to be, but just being open to connection. Like I truly, truly hope that someone watches this and it has a positive effect on their lives, and not from an ego standpoint, but from like, we are in this together. Like we truly affect one another. We truly are connected. And how do we connect with each other in a authentic way, not in a masked way or filtered way, but like a true, authentic, raw moment to allow something to develop, to allow growth in each other, to stop in this moment right now and reflect on what it is that we are and how far we've come in this reality, and who we are amongst the many at an individual level, and how beautiful that is. But then also know that we are a part of the collective and how beautiful that is. And we directly have an effect on that consciousness. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for watching my channel and for your support and for you sharing this moment with me and allowing me to step into that vulnerability of letting you see me. I hope that you guys have an amazing day. I hope that wherever you are, no matter how dark it is, that you keep going. I hope that I can be a spark of light for you in this journey. And if anything, know that you are loved.